Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fragrant Bunker. Today we're going to talk about our favorite topic, cheapie perfumes. Now, first, I want to say thank you everybody so much for tuning in and watching my top 5 cheapie perfume selection video. The amount of love and comments and sharing of ideas and thoughts about perfumes in general and which are the best ones for you. It was just amazing and overwhelming. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of comments. It was just wonderful to read through all of them. I tried to get back to and answer almost all of them. I did read all of them. Thank you so much. And there was a lot of questions still open about cheapies and the conversation around surrounding cheapie perfumes. So let's dive a little bit deeper into cheapie perfumes. You can check out my top 5 cheapie perfume video, but also we're going to take it into the next level today because we're going to talk about uh, more in depth what cheapies mean. Now, first of all, I always say this, cheapie is not a derogatory term to me in my vocabulary. It does not mean that the perfume is bad quality, that it is inferior, subpar, none of that whatsoever. It's just that we need some form of terminology to define a fragrance that, in my opinion, cheapie is like $20 US dollars or less. So, because again, what is affordable nowadays? The expenses of life, of living are really, really high. Everything is super expensive. Food is expensive. Rent is expensive. Mortgages are expensive. Everything is expensive. If you live in a big city where there's public transportation has become more expensive. If you're living in a city where there is no public transportation, buying gas for your car, paying the insurance for the car, everything is expensive. So I understand that even $20 for perfume is expensive. But then we also see that some particularly niche fragrances, niche brands, and some luxury exclusive fragrances that fall under the niche category of luxury niche within brands like Hermescence from Hermès, or the Collection Privée for Dior, or the Louis Vuitton fragrances that they sell exclusively only in their boutiques, or the Chanel Exclusives range. These are considered kind of the niche of their luxury houses, because they also have mass release perfumes as well. And then there is the price of all of these fragrances, which can go into the hundreds and even sometimes thousands of dollars per bottle. So comparatively speaking, I want to say, if you have a bottle of a perfume bottle, or a perfume that is costing you per bottle $300, $4, $5, $6, into the thousands, and then next to it you have a $20 perfume, you might think, well, if all of those other perfumes, and I've seen a lot of them lately, if none of them are under $300 a bottle, then maybe that's the standard. Maybe that's the standard of quality. So how can possibly, if I've seen hundreds of perfumes for $300 plus per bottle, then how can a $20 perfume possibly be good? They must use inferior quality ingredients for it. Mustn't they? Aren't they using inferior quality? Well, here's the thing. Sometimes they are. There are some cheapy fragrances out there that were at their inception already born as perfumes, usually the ones that are attributed to certain, for example, like designer fragrances for famous people. So musicians, singers releasing a perfume, usually those are kind of borderline. I remember, gosh, over 10 years ago, Dita Fontees had a whole series of fragrances that she released. Was it with Coty? I don't remember which company, but they were drugstore perfumes, and they were packaged accordingly. And they looked like very thin cardboard with plastic cover in front of them, And interesting concept of smells, but like the dry downs would always be very screechy. They would be very synthetic, not in a good way. But that's because most of those fragrances were pushing towards amber accords. deeper oudi accord. Some of them might have a white floral aspect to them in the opening, but then they would go into the spicy vibe in the dry down. And I always say, if you want to really go into the cheapies, the best you can get out of a cheapie to smell elegant and elevated is if you go into the white floral direction rather than the oudi direction or the ambroxan direction. All of those ingredients that kind of mimic ambergris or musks, those can smell very screechy on the skin. But if you stick with the white florals, you get a very beautiful, elegant fragrance because white florals screech less in general, right? So my top 5 cheapie perfumes list includes white florals. However, we have had a wonderful conversation in the comment sections underneath that video, and a lot of people were mentioning also other types of cheapie fragrances that are considered cheapies nowadays that are not white florals, that go into that ambery accord direction, that are also really amazing. And I said, yeah, I completely agree with you. So today we're going to touch base on those in particular. We're going to add the deeper, more nuanced, maybe slightly peppery in some cases, and ambery accords for cheapie fragrances. And mind you, these perfumes, when they were first released, some a few decades ago, some almost 100 years ago, they were not cheapies. Upon their first release, they were, the top of the class. They were the biggest, the best prestige item you could get. And they were packaged accordingly with, in some cases, very complex boxes and packaging with satin on the inside, little pillows to stand on, or wooden boxes, and so on. Now, to me, it's still a miracle that they're still in production. Some of them 100 years later, almost, still in production today. Yes, they have been reformulated, somewhat toned down, but I dare I say, I think they have been adapted to the times. So not every reformulation is bad either, in my opinion. And they have been transformed. They've either passed on from one owner to the next, meaning one distribution company to the next. As some companies fail or get sold to other companies, conglomerates step in. A lot happens throughout decades. But nevertheless, some of these perfumes have survived. And it is a miracle in its own right that they have survived. And also, they're still really very beautiful. One of them, I want to start off with a really, really beautiful one. I'm going to show you the original version of it. Obviously, today they have changed the bottle, but I do have a modern day bottle as well. I just want to show you the original one because it was just a masterpiece. Pierre Dinant is the designer of this particular bottle, and we have Obsession. And a lot of you have been mentioning Obsession in my last cheapie video, and a lot of you have been saying that you love this gorgeous amber accord in Obsession. I love it too. This is the splash bottle from the 80s. Obsession was released in the mid-80s. Everybody remembers Kate Moss in the advertisement for Obsession for Men in particular. Actually, she was advertising. Oh my God. But Unilever at a certain point was producing this. First, it was Calvin Klein. This is the Cologne concentration. Matter of fact, let me delicately flip this without losing any liquid. It says Cologne here. That was the first iteration of Obsession, was Cologne. And then they did the Eau de Parfum version soon thereafter. There's oak moss in here, a ton of amber, sandalwood. This is a wonderful fragrance. Do you remember the advertisements, the video ads back in the day? Now, Obsession did not have Kate Moss in it in the ad. Obsession for Men did. And a lot of people get it confused because she's a lady, so she would advertise for the female version of the perfume. No, the infamous photos of Kate Moss in the flesh, that's Obsession for Men. Then later on, she also did Obsession for Women. But the first ads for Obsession, and Obsession came out before Obsession for Men, the ads were super abstract, filmed in black and white. Everybody was super confused about it. I remember back in the day in the 80s, even in the sitcoms, late night TV shows, everybody was talking about the Obsession commercial. I remember specifically one episode of The Golden Girls where I think it was B. Arthur as Dorothy, kind of as they were trying to deliver a punchline or a joke within one of the skits or one of the segments of The Golden Girls of one of the episodes, she mentioned something to the likes of, You know, I can't make anything out of this situation, like the current obsession commercials. So it is a very specific pop cultural reference within that sitcom that you can only understand if you actually have seen the ad or the advertisement, the video advertisement for Obsession, and if you have smelled Obsession. So there's a lot of things that you need to understand in order to understand that joke. But once you understand, once you've seen the ads, and they're available on YouTube, the old 80s ads for Obsession, and they are very abstract, and it's a kind of a love affair, love story between this older guy and a younger woman, and a little bit sketchy. Morals were different back in the day. So, and they're in this abstract room. There's no walls basically in the room. Everything is disappearing, and they're kind of bickering about, is it a real relationship? Was it just a dream? Is she going to leave him? Does she really exist? Is he really there? But he's obsessed with her. It's obsession. I mean, I love those ads. They are, for today's standards, we are more numb to experimental, creative visuals like that. But back in the 80s, that was, there was no internet back then. People couldn't just, nobody had a camera. I mean, very few people could film actual videos like that. And that was filmed probably with, in analog, with a cinematographer and with celluloid instead of video. Now everybody has a smartphone, everybody has an iPad or something, and you could film and edit. Editing software is everywhere. You can upload whatever you want. YouTube has a ton of abstraction of art videos. When YouTube first started over a decade ago, it was such a beautiful platform, so much experimentation. Now it's become very much corporate. It is what it is. Everything that becomes successful loses a little bit of its artistry and goes into that sellout mode. But that artistry, to have something like that on television in the 80s as an advertisement play as a video was shocking because people only had TV or VHS tapes. There was no internet really that was accessible to everybody back in the day. So people were not used to experimentations like that. So when the Obsession commercial hit the airwaves or the TV waves, it was a sensation. People were so confused. They were talking about it for weeks and months. And then in the early 90s, David Lynch and Mark Frost launched Twin Peaks, which revolutionized television forever. But about Twin Peaks, maybe in another video. Maybe if you want to know more about Twin Peaks, check out my review of Sycamore by Chanel. As you know, in Twin Peaks, we have underneath the sycamore trees, and the sycamore trees indicate where the entrance to the Black Lodge is, but we digress. So back to Obsession. What a game changer. And this kidney-shaped bottle, oh my gosh, such a masterpiece. And still to this day, now Coty took over the manufacturing from Unilever. I did not like the Unilever version and formulation of Obsession, but the current Coty version, which you can get, I have purchased my 100 milliliter spray bottle from Coty for $14. That's 1-4. Sometimes you can also find it for 60, depending on the time. They go on sale a lot. You got to know where to look. I found it on Amazon. Sometimes it's at CVS, even Marshall's, TJ Maxx, but at Ross. Also Obsession for Men. I love both. By the way, both fall in the cheapie category today. I just wanted to show you this one today because the bottle is just a masterpiece in my opinion. And the Coty version is a little bit aggressive in the opening, but then with time, it, as it marinates and gets a little bit of oxygen, that vanilla gourmand almost vibe of that perfume together with that sandy, irisy, powdery orichy accord kind of go up more to the surface, and you get less of that bergamot spiciness in the opening, which is something that you have when you have a fresh batch of modern day Obsession. Use it up a little bit, get a little bit of oxygen in that bottle, and then let it marinate a little bit, a couple of months. It's going to be so beautiful and ambery with time. That vanilla is going to come more to the surface. Now, it's an interesting perfume because it does start off quite green, believe it or not. That bergamot that's there, it does start off green. And then it goes into that oak moss, amber accord with those duney, beachy, sandy nuances. Oh my God, this is such a masterpiece. I love this perfume so much. It almost has a caramel tint to it, a caramel accord. And all the oak moss in here. I mean, this one, look, oak moss is a fixative usually. So you could say this is an amber chypre in a way because of the bergamot oak moss. Probably there's labdanum in here as well. And it's a fixative, which means it stabilizes the perfume so it kind of goes bad slower. And certain perfumes that are almost 100 years old, I mean, I have a few in my collection, they're still wonderful. The top notes, those citrusy oil accords in the opening, they might be busted and gone. But the mid notes and the bottom notes, the base notes are usually still there, even in perfumes that I have for over 100 years or 100 years now in my collection. So, you know, when I do find a vintage bottle of a perfume that I love, I buy it. It's a blind purchase, I think. It might be off, might not be off. Particularly dangerous with splash bottles. Because anybody can open and put whatever they want inside. So, but if I find it at a good price, I got this a couple of years ago. I think it was like 20 or 30 bucks off of one of those pre-loved websites. I bid on it and I won and I got it, and I'm really lucky because it's almost a full bottle, and it's just a historic item. But I still also love the current bottle of it. Yeah, it's a little bit more simplified. You lift the lid and then there's a golden sprayer on top, but that doesn't matter. It's still in its pebbly shape. And if we're talking about non-white florals in the Cheapie family, and we're thinking about something nuanced, deep, and you want it to be ambery, Obsession, whether it be for women or for men, both are beautiful. You can't really make a mistake with those, in my humble opinion. And also, perfumes know no gender in my book, so I love to wear both Obsession for men and the regular Obsession. It all depends on how well it smells to you on your skin, and enjoy that and wear it. We wear perfumes for ourselves, right? I know some of us also wear perfumes, you know, because you want to get compliments when you go out, and that's okay too. Everybody chooses a perfume how they think it works best for them. Because at the end of the day, you should always choose a perfume in order to feel good about yourself, to relax, to calm down. Aromatherapy is a real thing, you guys. Yeah, whether it be, you know, you might just go home and buy some fresh sage leaves or dried up sage leaves for tea. Also very soothing and calming just to boil that in a pot and just inhale. You know, the aroma of boiling sage leaves and water is very soothing and calming. You know, so it doesn't have to be stuff that has a lot of chemicals like perfumes. There's a lot of different ways that smells can help us calm down. And we are living in very difficult and dangerous times. So our anxiety levels and stress levels are pretty high at the moment. Well, I can speak for myself, mine are. So I have noticed that perfumes really help me a lot to just kind of anchor myself, you know, calm down, come back to myself, feel some type of way. They help me. Perfumes are like my friends, and they don't have to be expensive to be wonderful and to be helpful. So here's another example of beautiful perfume that falls into the cheapie category. I got mine for around about $14. That's 1.4 for, I think it is a 75 milliliter, 68 milliliter. It's a very weird size for a perfume, but it is made in America. Boy, oh boy, this one is from 1932, you guys. What a masterpiece. It is Taboo by Dana or Dana, depending on which part of the world you're in or at, the pronunciation of the manufacturer of this perfume. Look at this gorgeous font from the 30s. This is also a little bit Art Deco, so it is reminiscent of the 20s, but after all, the perfume was released in 1932, very close to the 20s, so there's still an influence of the 20s in it. This is an eau de cologne, 2.3 fluid ounces, 68 milliliter. Now, this one is made in the US, it does list Avernia furfuracea, which is tree moss extract, not oak moss, tree moss, but in the... Oh, man, it's a time travel machine, let me tell you. What a beauty. Still to this day manufactured. Can you believe it? Almost 100 years after its release. Nowadays, this is how the packaging looks like. So like I said, $14 or $15. I did get this one at Rite Aid in their kind of clearance section at a certain point. Top notes, Italian bergamot, lemon oil. And then we got mid notes, Bulgarian rose, ylang ylang, jasmine absolute. And then the base notes, patchouli, oak moss, amber, and musk. So beautiful. And this, man, it's such a time travel machine. It takes you back. Musks back then were animalic musks. The civet was civet from the civet animal, the little butt gland of the civet. Thankfully, I know a lot of you are very concerned about the use of animals in perfumery, and justly so. So I can let you know, even though the American fragrances do not partake in the IFRA regulations like European fragrance manufacturers do, still certain ingredients are no longer used. So like if we say there's a musk in a modern day perfume, it's going to be a synthetic musk. It's not going to be an animal musk. Now, I don't know how certain countries have their standards and their laws, like outside of the United States, outside of the European Union, other parts of the world, whether or not they still use certain, naturals, that's on them. But this is produced in the US of A, and so that musk is a synthetic musk. However, the style of musk that is utilized mimics the animalic musks of the 30s. Now, if we are to compare the musk of Taboo to a musk from a modern day perfume, like let's say Chanel's Comet. This one has a ton of musk in it. The musk in here, and I used up a full bottle. The musk in here is very soft, like a little feather, just like kind of falling onto you, like a powdery feather with a smidge of oil on it. Super soft. That's a modern day musk, very ethereal, very up there, like a feather. Musks in the 30s were earthy, were dirty in a way, animalic. And so the musk utilized here mimics that, right? So what you smell when you smell Taboo for the first time, even in its reformulated current version from the 2020s, almost 100 years later since its inception, you might think, oh, there's something about it that's a bit screechy. No, this is a really good reformulation. It's not screechy. It's that specific musk that is meant to smell more animalic, not very modern. The modern type of musks are much more ethereal and light. This one is heavy. It's a musk that is trying to be as true to a old school musk as possible. And of course, you might say, well, it's a little bit out of touch with where we are with perfumery nowadays. And I would say, yeah, you might think that, but here's the plot twist. In the perfume industry nowadays, if you follow a little bit what is happening with many different perfume fairs that are taking place across the world, like Essence, I don't know if they call it Essence, whatever, in Italy, and in Cannes, there's another perfume thing that's going on. There's like a lot of different perfume fairs, a lot of different companies. People try to, gather some funds and money to start a niche brand. There's basically, long story short, there's way more niche fragrances being launched every year in these days than there are mainstream perfumes. So what is even niche anymore? So many people are trying their luck with niche lately. They think, oh, this is super easy. It's a get rich quick scheme. And a lot of these companies fail because they realize, well, hold on a minute, why am I not becoming super famous and rich super quickly? Well, first of all, because there's way too many of those brands out there. A lot of them don't put a lot of love or effort into the products that they churn out. They overprice them, thinking without any heritage, without any knowledge of what you're doing, without any real love except for the love of the coin that you want to make off of these perfumes. You just churn them out thinking people are going to respect you, people are going to love you. Well, we're not stupid. The consumer is not stupid. We'll sniff out if something is a fraud, if something is scammy, So I think for a lot of these niche companies that try to start a new brand, I think they have to fly down, be a little bit more humble. Don't try to oversell this idea of, oh, we are the best. No, you just started. You're learning. Be humble and build up a reputation. You can't start from zero expecting everybody to think you already have a reputation. And then when we smell your perfume, your niche perfume, it just smells like your random dupe of Baccarat Rouge, your random dupe of Sauvage, your random dupe of anything with Ambroxan nowadays, and with the cheapest of Ambroxans at that. So, but then you're charging me $500 a bottle, and you're expecting to get away with it after another 1,000 different versions of niche perfumes are trying to do the same as you. You see what I mean? The market is overflooded. So, all this to say what? To me, cheapie is the new niche. If you know how to look for your cheapies, the old school ones that are still in production, there's a reason why they're still in production, because there's still people who are buying them, who love them, regardless of whether or not the reformulations are more or less dramatic. When it comes to Taboo by Dana, I think it was Sophia Groisman was involved in the reformulation of this one. A lot of respect to Groisman, who also developed another Calvin Klein masterpiece, Eternity. Eternity being a white floral, another one of those that I love very much. Check out my review of Eternity. Late 80s was the release date. I still have the extrait. In my review, I showcase it. A little tiny splash bottle nestled in a silver platinum gray satin little spot to place in a box. Oh, so beautiful. Eternity also falls into the cheapie category nowadays. Beautiful fragrance. I highly recommend it. Also distributed and manufactured by Coty currently. So Eternity, but would fall into the white florals. We're talking more about ambery accords here, and deeper, spicy, woodsy, patchouli accords. So Eternity doesn't fall into that category, but nevertheless, beautiful fragrance. Now, when you smell Taboo, you do smell the 30s, but you also smell something new, effervescent in a way. I gotta say, new because it reminds us of the 30s, and we're living in really dark times at the moment. It almost feels like we're heading back to that time. I pray to whatever is up there that we do not go there, that we stop and love each other again and find peace with each other again, that we don't go that far. But this perfume is very kind of that time again. So when you smell it, there's almost a warning in this bottle. The smell comes from a time long gone, but the message it delivers is menacingly modern and on point. So it's an eye opener. This perfume is so honest. I love it so much. It is historically relevant, it is emotionally relevant, and it is also kind of like your big brother, big sister, parent, ancestor that is coming from the past to warn you, to say, do not repeat the mistakes of the past that humanity has mistaken. It's like a warning. Another beautiful aspect of this, I don't know if you've noticed, but, and I say this in my review of Taboo, it has a beautiful shape, the bottle. It's, believe it or not, reminiscent of ancient Egypt. Now, 1932, Hollywood in America, we're obsessed with ancient Egypt. We have, already in the late 20s, but we have the Egyptian theater, we have a lot of traveling to foreign lands and times, and in 1932, the Mummy movie with Boris Karloff was released. And I talk more in depth about that in my review of Taboo, but also what is interesting is the historical context of the design of this bottle looking like it came from ancient Egypt, as Hollywood perceived and saw ancient Egypt in the 30s. So always bear that in mind. Have a historic context, socio-historic, socio-political, socio-economical context when you analyze a fragrance, because it comes from a specific time, a specific aesthetic. So it does smell of the taboo. You know, it's like something that is forbidden, but everybody talks about it. There's a desire in this perfume. And there's an aesthetic to it that I love very much. I love this Egyptian vibe, this ancient Egyptian, almost like a pharaoh type of vibe. Beautiful. And under $20. I mean, you have the full concept. It was made with love. It was made in a time when fragrances meant something. There was storytelling behind them. It wasn't just a get rich quick scheme, you know, like when they just churn out, yeah, here's a collection of 20 perfumes, bam, out of nowhere. It's not like they're slowly building a collection. They release one perfume every year, every 2 years. No, you know, when they like churn out immediately a set, here's a set of 10, there they are, this is it. And sometimes they don't even want to tell you who the perfumer is. I'm looking at you, Balenciaga. What you just did with your perfumes, you know, Balenciaga just launched a collection of 10 perfumes and they don't want to say who the perfumer is. Like, that's so disrespectful, I thought. But anyway, we digress. And of course, $360 a bottle. Yeah. So moving on. The next one, I love this one so much. This one is, technically it has a bit of white floral in it, tuberose, but it's not a white floral whatsoever. It is a pineapple, fruity, forbidden fruit, patchouli drenched 90s, early 90s cornucopia of emotions and excitement. And it's from Cacharel. It's Eden. I do have a little miniature bottle here, still the original from the 90s, splash bottle. They used to make them in this green glass, and the green glass was marbled. So obviously with my, sorry, to cover my eyes, with this tiny bottle, you might not see the marble effect, but they had like 3 different hues of green that they would twirl together, and they would be, so every bottle would have a slightly different marble effect on it. This is when it was brand new and a splash bottle. So you would lift this little lid and it's a leaf, right? But when you turn it to the side, it's like a little stick. And Le Parfum Défendu was the advertisement back in the day. And the lady was completely nude walking through the Garden of Eden. And this would kind of be, you know, on the breast, the nipple. So there's like a whole concept behind this perfume. The design, again, so Guichat is the perfumer behind this one, but Pierre Dinan designed the bottle, the same guy who did this. So we have here a little bit of the masterfulness and the artistry is there. This perfume was not a cheapie back in the day. It is a cheapie today. So when it was released in the early 90s, it is a very typical 90s fragrance. It is ahead of its time. It's part of what I always like to say, the Cacharel masterpiece trifecta. For me, it is Anaïs Anaïs from the late 60s. Some people say 70s. Check out my review of Anaïs Anaïs, where I explain the whole debacle about whether or not the fragrance was released in the late 60s or in the 70s. After I explained that in my review, this is, by the way, I have a bottle of Anaïs Anaïs here for you as well to see. Spoiler alert, Anaïs Anaïs falls into my top 5 cheapies video. Oh, what a beautiful perfume. And some people, after they have watched my review of Anaïs Anaïs and me explaining the controversy about when was it really released, most people claim that it was released in the 70s, late 70s. I do have a few people that have commented under that video saying they are in their 60s, 70s, and they say that they remember that they had a bottle of Anaïs Anaïs already before the middle of the 70s, which means they believe that they got their bottle prior to the date when most websites claim that Anaïs Anaïs was released being late 70s. So some people say, no, I remember having it already in the early 70s. Anyway, so Anaïs Anaïs, part of the trifecta that I love so much of Cacharel, and then Lulu from the 80s, and then also a cheapie today, also a wonderful tuberose with a beautiful powdery accord. Love it to bits. Highly recommend Lulu. Also a cheapie today, as well as Eden from the 90s, another cheapie. So these 3 are the masterpieces of Cacharel. Anais having the white glass bottle, Lulu having the blue glass bottle, and Eden having the green glass bottle. Now, it is no longer available as a splash perfume. Cacharel is now making Eden only as a spray perfume. I think they only do two sizes, 30 ml and 50 ml nowadays. Usually, for some strange reason, the 30 ml is the cheapie, and the 50 ml costs like 3 or 4 times more. I don't know why. I think they mass produce the smaller one. But who knows? Sometimes I also found really good price for the 50 ml, like $25. But the 30 ml is usually $15 to $20. Love it to bits. It is not a perfume that I would wear on the neck or here in the chest area because it is extremely intoxicating. It is the idea, and check out my review of Eden, also on my channel. The idea of the Garden of Eden having only Adam and Eve in it, but everything is delivered to them. This huge garden full of ripening fruits, food, opulence, everything is in abundance there for them. But these two people alone can't eat it all. So it starts over ripening. This garden is so ripe that it is just about to turn and start fermenting and rotting. And it is such a beautiful concept of oversaturation. Matter of fact, the original advertisement for Eden also showcases very 90s style, but showcases an oversaturation of colors within the photography. There's a lot of greens, a lot of reds, pinks, purples, like all of the smells from the perfume are rendered in the photography for this advertisement, and everything is slightly off, but oversaturated. The colors are oversaturated. And when you smell the perfume, it almost feels like all of these fruits and all of these earthy tones and essential oils in here are all overripe. And they're just about to go bad and stale and start rotting, but they don't. So it's an overabundance, overconsumption. It's a very conceptual perfume. Again, as a cheapie today, this one delivers more story, more heritage, more thought through processes, whether it be the design of the bottle, the concept of the smell, the story behind the perfume, the name of the perfume. Way deeper, more thought through, and interesting than any cheapie out there today. You know, when they release all 50 bottles and all 50 perfumes in the same bottle, just different sticker name on them and call it a day, you know, to minimize costs. Yeah, and then like, bam, you have this, it has its own shape. It's not mimicking or copying anything else. That's what perfumery, that's when perfumery used to be masterful. And also when commercials were still amazing for perfumes. Nowadays, everything is a joke. There's like no more art form within visual video advertisement for perfumes. So when it comes to Eden, you have this oversaturation of a smell, but it is beautiful. However, I told you, don't wear it too close to the nose. Wear it only behind the knee. Yeah, you might think, wait, what? It's a concept. Usually the French wear their perfumes behind the knees, but this in particular with Eden, trust me, it doesn't matter if you're not wearing a short skirt or short pants so that your knees are bare. You can also wear pants that are long or a long, dress or a long skirt. Still spray it on. It's strong enough. Don't worry. It'll still slither up your body into your nose, but you will give it that distance that it needs to bloom in the air. Because from the nose, the distance from your nose to your neck is very short. The perfume is very intense here. It needs that time to emanate. At a certain distance, it starts smelling the right way. Behind the knee is the right amount of distance from your nose to behind the knee. That's the distance the perfume needs to bloom properly in the air. And then you're going to love it. Otherwise, you can get headaches from this one. It is very intense. I'm not a person that wears perfume for others. I wear it for myself. But in the heat of summer, like July, August, in the Northern Hemisphere, when I wear Eden, always behind the knee, I'm not the person that is very prone to, compliment getters or having people say, "Oh, what are you wearing?" And I always, I made a whole video about feeling a little bit violated when somebody just out of the blue comes and says, "What perfume are you wearing?" You're like, "Oh my God, it's such an intimate thing," right? The gatekeeping perfumes story, which I also did a while ago, a little bit controversial, but it's not meant to be in any way, shape, or form an egotistical thing about saying like, I don't want you to know. No, I want you to know, but let me open up to you. Don't force me to open up to you. It's about giving people also the time, the respect to open up. But we digress. So, but obviously, I love to share what perfume I'm wearing. It's just don't be aggressive with me. You know what I mean? So anyway, um, Eden is one of those instances where always I wear it behind the knee, right? People react to it. They always react to it, and they're always like, what is this smell? It smells like there's a garden in bloom, but something is slightly off, but it's luring you in. It's the tuberose. The tuberose is always very sexual, right? And but it's a creamy, like tonic version of a floral fruit. There's also pineapple in this perfume, garden. And but it's so human. It smells very human, but also otherworldly. It just lures you in. If you know how to wear it, just one spritz behind each knee and you're good to go. And then it really works the way it's supposed to work. But like I said, it's one of those rare occasions when I wear this out and about. Because people react very strongly to this one, I usually tend to wear it just for myself at home. And it's such a beautiful, mesmerizing perfume. I mean, if I open this up, there it is. It's 90s in a bottle, you guys. And it still to this day smells amazing. I found these little sample bottles on a pre-loved website a couple of years ago. I bought 10 of them. They had like 10. It was a set of 10, and I got all 10. Beautiful. And the 90s, you know, Pulp Fiction came out in the 90s. Then we have Jurassic Park. It came out in the 90s. We have a beautiful French science fiction movie by Luc Besson, The Fifth Element, came out in the 90s. There were so many beautiful movies that came out in the 90s. Like Pulp Fiction, for example, there was a very specific aesthetic. Pedro Almodovar made his best movies, 80s, but also in the 90s. Technicolor was still utilized, and then less and less so, but the saturation of colors in film are so beautiful, that oversaturation of certain colors, that nowadays color grading in movies don't really deliver that. Usually if you work with Fujifilm, you're gonna work with a green patina. That's a specific choice. Certain movies or TV shows have that green patina always about them. Other movies have a blue patina. Very cool down. That's very 2015 aesthetic. Coincidentally, Jurassic World, not Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, that came out around about 2015, blue was the color of it. And the main Velociraptor is also called blue, but the whole aesthetic of that movie was blue colors. The logo was silver and blue. The color grading was very cool, totally different to the 90s Jurassic Park, which was all about orange, yellow, red colors, warm saturation in film, not digital film, analog film. Makes a heck of a difference. Perfumery also thought that way. Perfumery worked in that way too, the aesthetic of it. So these perfumes, even though they're cheapies today, they still carry that DNA. So you still get to, when you experience the current version of this deep, nuanced fragrance from Cacharel, Eden, today, if you buy it at CVS or off of Amazon or whatever, you're going to smell the 90s. You're going to smell the whole concept and aesthetic of that saturation. You're going to hear B. York with her debut album, or Post. Post came out in the 90s. Who remembers Post? Army of Me. B. York. I mean, you know, dreamy landscapes. Even Madonna, and Bjork wrote the song for her. Even Madonna went into that Eden direction with what's the song that Bjork wrote for her? Um, the one where she goes, "Let's get unconscious, babe, honey, let's get unconscious." I think it was Bedtime Story. That's from the album Bedtime Stories. I think the song is also called Bedtime Story. That abstraction, also a last era of wonderful music video clips, was in the 90s. And that video is incredible. It's kind of like Madonna's version of REM's Losing My Religion, with kind of a dream landscape and floating in a dream, and picture frames with eyeballs opening and closing, and everything is very kind of Salvador Dali, but into the 90s, Pulp Fiction-esque, very specific aesthetic, very specific saturation. And that's where Eden really hits. So it's also beautiful to rewatch movies from the 90s or music video clips from the 90s while you're wearing this perfume. It gives you access to a whole other level of mind-blowing. It's like four-dimensional. It's a four-dimensional experience because you also get to smell the time. You don't just get to see it visually, but you get to smell it. And you also have the bottle in hand, so it's a tactile experience as well. You get to touch the 90s. Same here with the 30s, the 1930s with Taboo, or with the 80s with Obsession. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful place to be mentally, And then, of course, I showcased in my other video also Oscar de la Renta and Liz Claiborne. Still also cheapies today. Wonderful white florals. This is from the 70s, this one from the 80s. This is a beautiful modern rendition of Mitsuko, in my opinion. It's a modern day Chypre version of Mitsuko because it does have that peach accord in there. It does have the bergamot. It does have the oak moss, but made for the 80s, much more, powdery. Oh, what a masterpiece. But more about these in their respective review videos that I have on my channel, but also in my top 5 cheapie perfumes selection video. So as you can see, I can go on talking about cheapies forever because I think they have a very specific quality to them. They have history to them. And they make you feel like when you're wearing them, you're tapped into pop culture, history, art history, culture in general, but in a meaningful way, as opposed to buying some, random niche brand that just launched this year, launching their 10 perfumes from their collection for $400 each without any history behind them, no story whatsoever. They might lie to you that there's a story behind it, but it's like, no, these babies here have been around for decades, some of them almost 100 years. That's meaningful. That means that there's something there that has kept them going. They speak to people somehow, and people react to them. Hence why they're still in production. I have the utmost respect for these fragrances. And I'm very grateful that the price tag is not $400 a bottle, but rather $20 or less, US. So, like I always say, a perfume needn't be expensive to be good quality. Just because something is expensive doesn't make it good or better. And just because something is more affordable and not as expensive doesn't automatically mean that it is bad quality or lesser than. And I'm also sick and tired of seeing content creators posting videos on, influencers on their channels when they talk about perfumes or makeup or fashion, and they will be unboxing a new release every day on their channels, and they will be showing you unboxing. Oh, and I got this from the brand, and it's a $500 bottle. Get it. It's amazing. And they're paid to tell you it's amazing. And even if they're not paid, they're sent the bottle maybe for free, You don't have to do a review, but if you want us to keep sending you perfumes, maybe you want to say something nice about us. They don't say it, but if you don't mention them in a video, why would they want to send you another bottle next time? So you as a consumer, I'm a consumer too. You know, I bought all of these perfumes myself. Dana did not send me this perfume. I bought it. Okay. You know what I mean? I I feel like as a consumer, when we're watching, as a consumer of these videos and also as a consumer of perfumes, when we're watching these, videos, it's just like obnoxious at a certain point. It's like, how many perfumes do you want me to buy, dude? You know, sitting down in front of like, the wardrobe behind them of like shelves of like hundreds of bottles. And it's like, it's vile. It's overconsumption in the worst way. I love Vivienne Westwood's motto, um, buy less, choose well, make it last. Really be meaningful about what it is that you're buying. Why do you want it? Do you need it or do you want it? There's a big difference between wanting and needing. Consumer society wants us to blend the two together. They don't want us to differentiate what we need from what we want. And then you have all these influencers that are pushing it onto you, making you feel like you need it. You don't even want it. You don't even need it, but they make you believe that you do. So you end up rushing out and buying it. And then the next day, they're already making their other video telling you, well, but now buy this one. I'm like, wait, hold on a minute. I just bought a 100 ml bottle of this niche thing for $400. Can I use it first? No, because this other thing that just came out tomorrow is a limited edition. So FOMO, 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 buy that as well. And then you're like, oh, okay. Okay, let me get that one as well. And then before you know it, you end up with a shrine full of perfume bottles and you're never using. You don't get a chance to enjoy them. No time. There's no time because there's a new one being churned out. And I think it's disrespectful to the viewers of a lot of these channels. To their own viewers, how gullible do they think their viewers are? To kind of like, you become like a victim of these content creators because you keep buying everything that they're telling you to buy. And these are really expensive perfumes and some of them are really not good, but they're telling you they're good. But are they going to wear them themselves? No. They get most of the stuff for free and they have hundreds of bottles. What are they going to do with them? They don't have the time to wear them. All they're doing is promoting them, but they're not really living with them, enjoying them, savoring them in a good way. Allegedly, this is just my opinion, of course, and I'm just tired of watching these channels that constantly perpetrate this idea of you should not take the time to live with the perfume and let the perfume tell you a story. And many perfumes tell you more than one story, but rather buy it, leave it in the box, buy the next one tomorrow, and leave that in a box and then buy the next one. And it's way too, it's gotten out of hand. And I think we need to slow down. We all need to slow down and start appreciating what we already have, rather than thinking that the grass is always greener in the neighbor's yard, rather than thinking that what we don't have yet must be better than what we already have. No. Usually what you already have is the best. You just don't realize it. And this can trickle down into a lot of other issues like dating apps. And this is why people never commit to a deeper relationship because they think, well, there's always somebody new popping up on the dating app and something better is always around the corner. This whole mentality, you see how it seeps into everything in our lives, from food consumption to perfume consumption. We started also consuming people as objects. Just turn on the dating app, there's the next 50 people lined up. And then you date a person and then you think, they got a little twitch in their eye. It's annoying me. I'm going to find somebody who doesn't have the twitch in their eye. Like you're not giving people a chance. You're not giving people time to develop a relationship. You're just discarding everything, moving on next, swipe left, next. And the same is with objects, with perfumes. You're like, oh, got one, consumed. Okay, I consumed it as in I bought it, looked at it, put it on the shelf. Okay, what am I getting next? Because the next one is going to be better. The next perfume I buy is going to be, no, it's not. No, it's not. Why don't you take the time to let the perfume that you already have tell you all the wonderful, magical stories that it has to share with you? But you have to give it the time. You have to give it your attention. You have to give it effort, love. Because it all boils down to that. Love. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts about the cheapie world. And what are your favorite cheapies? And if you want me to make more. Thumb up the video, subscribe, and never give up on fragrant love. Bye.